Rajouri Sector in Jammu and Kashmir is once again the battlefield of a deadly new terrorist encounter. Two vehicles, two army gypsies were ambushed by terrorists from their hiding place as they were speeding towards an encounter site where Indian Jawans were engaging with terrorists. 4 army soldiers have lost their lives. They were killed in action during this exchange of fire. They were in their gypsies when they were shot dead. At least 2 more are said to be critically injured at this point of time. This is a story that goes way beyond just the Rajouri Sector area called Dera ki Gali, where this ambush took place, because the implications go far beyond just Jammu and Kashmir. They in fact go all the way to Ladakh as well, and we'll be telling you in an exclusive report shortly by India Today's Manjeet Negi why we believe this to be the case. 10 years ago, viewer, soldiers were beheaded in the Mendhar sector, which is just south of where this actually took place. Could there have been mutilations this time as well? Did the terrorists actually behead or mutilate Indian soldiers this time? We don't know for sure. That there's no confirmation and no official word from the army just yet, because that is something that takes a terror encounter or a terror ambush and converts it into something else entirely. We on India Today will continue to report very responsibly. We will not report live from the encounter site, and we will always only show you images that are deferred and never live from the encounter site. We understand our responsibility in reporting a developing story. Now I want to show you the report that India Today's Manjeet Negi has put together after speaking to his contacts in the military forces. And this throws up a Pakistan-China terror tango to bleed India. Let me explain it very briefly, and then you can watch Manjeet's report. In 2020, when the India-China standoff began in Ladakh, the Indian Army needed to redeploy forces in Ladakh in order to bolster our defenses against the Chinese front. At that time, it is possible that the Indian Army may have pulled out certain units, including from Rajouri and Poonch, in order to bolster strength on the Ladakh and eastern Ladakh front. As a result of which, according to the report you're about to watch, there may have been suboptimal deployments in the Rajouri-Poonch sector. Now remember, the army officially denies this. Many veterans also deny it. But those gaps are seen to have been manipulated now by a Pakistan-China nexus in order to force the Indian Army to push back its forces from Ladakh and redeploy them once again in areas along the line of control. Watch this big exclusive by India Today's Manjeet Negi.
Four soldiers of the Indian Army shot dead by terrorists as they rushed towards an encounter site in Jammu and Kashmir. An encounter in the upper reaches of the Rajouri sector near Thana Mandi. Sources tell India Today this wasn't an ordinary ambush. As the army responded to the initial contact with terrorists, a puppet front of Pakistan's banned terrorist organization, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, called the PAFF, took responsibility for the attack on security forces, releasing what appears to be body camera footage.
There are reports that the location of the terrorists, has been traced. So that is why we can see that reinforcements are being sent, and in Indian Army personnel are moving towards the hilltop, and the priority is to locate the terrorists and neutralize them as soon as possible.
But the Rajouri incident is exploding beyond this battlefield in Thana Mandi. For starters, it's the 3rd incident in this sector this year, where the army has suffered multiple casualties. Less than a month ago, 5 army soldiers, including 2 young officers, were killed in action not far from this encounter site. Earlier, in May 2023, 5 Army Special Forces soldiers were killed in action fighting terrorists in the same general area. 2 years ago, 9 soldiers were killed in action in 2 separate encounters in the Rajouri sector. a clear pattern has emerged. Despite overall levels of terror coming down across Jammu and Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370, the Rajouri sector remain ablaze with high casualty incidents. And this is where the story escalates. Top defense sources have told India today that both Pakistan and China have been actively cooperating to trigger a new wave of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. The aim is to put pressure on the Indian Army to withdraw troops from the eastern Ladakh sector and redeploy forces south of Pir Panjal. The reason? In 2020, when the India-China standoff began in eastern Ladakh as part of the effort to bolster force levels at the friction points, including near Galwan, the army had pulled out units of the Rajouri Punch area and redeployed the uniform force in Ladakh. This created a major force gap in this area, providing a clear opportunity for the China-Pakistan nexus to reactivate terror south of Pir Panjal. While China gains from pressure on the Indian Army to possibly consider redeployment of troops from Ladakh to Punch and Rajouri, the Pakistan Army gets to drum up emotions in view of elections on the corner in Pakistan. With Sunilji Bhatt in the Rajouri sector and Manjeet Singh Negi in Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
And I'll go across to India Today's Kamaljeet Sandhu, who's reporting from the Rajouri sector. And once again, I want to tell all of our viewers and reassure them that we will not be showing you any live images from the encounter site. We're reporting from slightly away from there, and all images that come in there from the encounter site itself are deferred, and we are fully aware of our responsibility in how to report from a live site. This is something that I give you my personal guarantee about, and India Today's Kamaljeet is also a veteran reporter who is aware of all of these protocols. Kamaljeet, no progress yet as far as the encounter itself is concerned. 4 army men have lost their lives in what was seen to be an ambush of those vehicles. What more can you share with us?
Shiv, what has been reiterated is that the terrain is very difficult. Unlike Kashmir, where there are mountainous regions, behind me, if you can see those soft hills, those are actually surrounded. If you see, there's a thick foliage of green cover all around. And that is what really makes it really tough, because even if you have drones for surveillance, those men can simply just hide into cavities in caves, in natural cave-like formation. And we've seen this happening often in Rajouri and Punch area. What we also know is that when all of a sudden this ambush-like firing took place on 2 of the vehicles, one an army gypsy, an army truck, there was an immediate retaliation. But meanwhile, it does seem that the terrorists managed to flee inside the green foliage. Immediately an operation was launched. It did take some time, and today, several hours after that firing has taken place, the top security force personnel, including the DG, the IG, the top army personnel, they're all there to ensure. But remember, encounters or counter-terror operations in this are long drawn out. It cannot be just immediately, because the entire area is very, very spread out. So strategically, they have to actually try and place things, and even though there could be gadgetry like the drones and whether we're talking about the weaponized drones or surveillance drones, all that being put in place, but it also intelligence-based operations. And we've been speaking to Indian Army, and they've been saying that out of hundreds of intelligence-based operation, and we've seen at least 27 kills taking place in the Jammu sector itself, and 25 of them were foreign terrorists. They do count it as a part of a setback, but remember, this is only temporary. 66% decline as per Ministry of Home Affairs and Parliament in terms of terror-related incidents, but
Yes.
that 40% are coming down to this Poonch and Rajouri area.
Exactly.
So obviously, this is very close to line of control. This is where Pakistan is trying to push in a certain module, and top security forces tell us that it is perhaps the same module, the PAF module, which is time again doing this particular things, that they obviously hibernate for some time
Yes.
till they choose another attack site. But this one, the army is saying, is a proactive operation. It's only when the ambush happened, that is where they have faced the setback. But remember, Indian army says they will get the perpetrators and neutralize them.
They will be neutralized. There's no question of that. And I think India's faith in its forces is, is never ever in question. We will continue to report as the information comes in. Stay safe, Kamal. Thank you very much for joining me on this. We will keep coming back to you. I'm also very honored to be joined by General Ved Prakash Malik, former Chief of the Army Staff. He has overseen the army. He has commanded in this area. He has led men in encounters and operations in Jammu and Kashmir, and he knows more than a thing or two, more than most, I would say, about the situation south of the Pir Panjal, the spotlight that has been cast on the Rajouri Poonch sector, and what India can actually do about it. Welcome, General. Thank you very much for your time. It's a sad occasion, when we are discussing once again an encounter in which 4 army men have lost their lives in what appears to have been some kind of a terror attack on their vehicle convoy when they were speeding towards the actual encounter site. I'd like to begin, General, by getting your first impressions from what you've heard so far about this attack, sir.
Thank you, Shiv. First of all, I'd like to convey my condolences to the families of the Jawans who have been killed, unfortunately, in this ambush which has taken place near Thana Mandi, Bafriaz area. It's a serious incident, particularly when you look back in the last couple of years. We have had almost about 33 or 34 soldiers killed in last 2 years, and about 18 or 19, I think, in the last 8 months.
Yes.
So I consider it serious both from the tactical point of view, operational point of view, and even from the strategic point of view. Now, what appears is, first, of course, is the terrain, which Kamal I just now described. There is much greater foliage in the mountains. There are many hideouts available to the terrorists. And also, I think probably these terrorists have started getting greater support now from south of Pir Panjal area than they are able to get in the north of Pir Panjal area. And it wasn't so earlier, but looking at the Gujars versus Bakarwal tension, which is always there, I don't rule out the terrorists getting greater support and then remaining in hiding with support from the villagers into the jungles. About the vacuum of density of troops, to some extent it is right that yes, some troops were pulled out from this area for the northern borders in 2021. But the area from where these troops were pulled out was slightly further south. Despite all that, I'm sure the lesser density of troops would probably also could be helpful to the terrorists to carry out their activities. There is no doubt that the density of troops is much less today than, say, it was 2 years ago. And so it is also, now that they're focusing on this area, I think it is making greater impact. Today, anything happening in the valley, it is taken for granted. But in this area, it is not taken for granted because there's a very large Hindu population also.
Yes.
And so it's a serious incident, and I'm sure the army and the local formations would be taking actions on it. Now, firstly, as far as the tactical part is concerned, I think I leave it to the commanders on the spot to judge if they have gone wrong somewhere or if they are going wrong somewhere. Because troops rushing to an encounter site is something which the terrorists always take advantage of. They know that when they create an incident, there will be troops rushing to that particular site.
Yes.
I don't know why that particular route to the ambush site, the earlier site, was not wherever the encounter was taking place. It was not sanitized. That should have been sanitized. 2 vehicles going in that direction, full of 6 or 7 or 10 troops, is not really good enough. So these are tactical aspects which I'm sure the local commanders will be taking into action.
Yes.
Looking at these incidents over the last couple of years now and so many months, I think we need to relook at the density of troops also, and perhaps for our proactive action, which must take place now.
Yes.
We need greater density of troops, so they will have to be pulled from somewhere and brought in here. But there's a need for us to go for a proactive operation, notwithstanding the challenges of the terrain or even of greater local support.
Yes.
I'm not too sure about the nexus between playing a part, nexus between Pakistan and China, because the incident itself suits Pakistan.
Right.
And
right.
So if they are not able to carry out major actions north of Pir Panjal, they would naturally focus on the south of Pir Panjal. And earlier also, once or twice, they have done it. But yes, the vacuum that created by pulling out some troops from this area to the northern border, that needs to be looked into.
General, this brings me to my second question, which is that, what needs to be done? Because it's not like, like you rightly pointed out, Rajouri Poonch has been a restive part of the line of control for a long time. Operation Sarp Vinash, which took place in 2003, was focused on this particular area for many of the reasons that you've also listed out. There are lots of hiding places. The terrain there lends itself to, terror encounters and terror hiding places and, logistical dumps for these terrorists who come across the LC. Is there, in your view, sir, a need for at least a consideration of something different, a larger scale, more focused operation in this area? Because post the abrogation of Article 370, if you look at the data, the general number of terror encounters, especially encounters in which there are multiple casualties, has come down by a large factor in the rest of Jammu and Kashmir. But in Rajouri and Poonch, that number is still very high, sir. Could Sarp Vinash 2.0, and I don't mean to simplify it, be one of the answers, sir?
Yes, I agree with you. And that's why I said that we have to go into larger proactive operations than, say, we were doing it in the past couple of years. And for that, you require extra troops.
Yes.
That will have to be conducted. It's not possible for us to depend entirely on the technology here, because the technology, whether it is UAVs or drones or whatever, they will not be able to help you very much. In this kind of operation, you require a larger number of troops, both to be able to sanitize the area in the villages, as well as to go into chasing the terrorists wherever they are hiding in the jungle. So you require a larger number of troops, and you require a larger number of proactive, offensive, whatever you like to call it, operations against these terrorists.
General Malik, always a pleasure, sir. Wanted to get your wisdom on this developing story, but always very, very useful to us and to our viewers to hear from someone like you, a veteran who's served the army, led the army, to tell us about some of these things which are complicated, shape-shifting concepts, but we will continue to look at them very, very closely. General Malik, a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being with me here on India Today. I touched upon Operation Sarp Vinash. Now, Sarp Vinash, for those of our viewers who may not know, was undertaken by the Indian Army 20 years ago, in April-May 2003, in this very sector where this encounter has taken place, in the Rajouri Poonch belt of the Jammu region. With a surge in terrorist attacks in that year, this was a multi-day, multi-pronged attack which was proactive to hunt down and snuff out at least 65 terrorists who were hiding in caves in that area. Is it time perhaps now for a Sarp Vinash 2.0? Watch this report by India Today's Gaurav Sawant.
During the Kargil War of 1999, large number of troops were pulled out of the counter-terror grid in Jammu and Kashmir and pushed up on the Kargil heights to push back against Pakistani soldiers who had infiltrated all along the Mushko Valley, Dras, Kaksar, Kargil and Balalik areas. South of Pir Panjal in the early 2000s, a large number of Pakistani hybrid terror teams had established their bases on the higher reaches surrounding Poonch and Rajouri towns. There were a spate of terror strikes targeting both soldiers and civilians all along the Jammu-Rajouri-Poonch axis. The army intelligence inputs indicated the presence of more than 100 terrorists in the mountains of Hilkaka around Poonch and Rajouri. The counter-insurgency division Romeo Force was tasked to draw plans to evict Pakistani intruders. General N.C. Vij, then Chief of Army Staff, and Major General Lidar, then Division Commander, launched a 4-phase operation. Phase 1, November to Jan 2002 to 2003, prepare helipad and mule tracks. Phase 2, February to April 2003, take control of adjoining heights. Phase 3, May to June 2003, clear area around Hilkaka of all civilians. Phase 4, June to July 2003, mount main operation on Poonch Rajouri heights. In the 4-phase sustained operation, more than 65 terrorists were neutralized, including border action teams of the Pakistani army that comprised doctors of the Pakistan army treating terrorists in caves. The remaining terrorists fled back to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, resulting in breaking the back of the terror outfits south of Pir Panjal. However, with relocation of troops to eastern Ladakh in 2020 post-Galwan, terrorists backed by Pakistan have once again established bases in the higher reaches of the Poonch Rajouri heights, clearly indicating it is time for Sarp Vinash 2.0. Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
And joining me live now is General Deepak Kapoor, former Chief of the Army Staff. We decided here on 5 Live to bring on board 2 former chiefs of the Indian Army to get their perspective on this particular issue. General Kapoor, pleasure, sir. First of all, thank you very much for being with me. We just had General Ved Malik as well. Now we have you. My first question, the same. Your first impressions, General Kapoor, on the Rajouri encounter that we've just seen, in which 4 Indian Army soldiers have been killed in action, sir.
It's not a surprise that it has happened. You see, there are a couple of issues which firstly need to be highlighted. And the first and foremost of those is the recent decision of the Supreme Court of India abrogating, agreeing with the government's decision of abrogation of Article 370. So that has sent a wave of disquiet across the line of control, and therefore that has also put in certain dynamics in play to rev up the situation in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The second aspect, which is also related, is the fact that currently is the winter season. All passes to the valley, that is Srinagar Valley, are closed. Invariably, it has happened, and I have been in Northern Command as an Army commander, I can say that with certainty, that once the winter starts, it is areas south of Pir Panjal which draw the attention of the infiltrating forces for coming in and creating a degree of disquiet. And you also need to view it with the fact that for the past year or two, there hasn't been much of an activity in the Poonch Rajouri sector. So there was, I'm sure they are feeling,
even though there have been 3 encounters this year.
Issue, and that is how you first had an encounter in the month of April, May, and this is now a follow-up of that, infiltrating of the terrorists, and then trying to create a certain amount of situation where the security forces are targeted. And this, I'm sorry about the deaths of about 4 of our men and injury to 3 others. But this is the way, a pattern which is going to be followed through, especially in these winter months when the passes up north are closed.
What is it, after the abrogation of Article 370, General Kapoor, the overall levels of terrorist violence in Jammu and Kashmir have actually come down quantifiably, visibly, as per the data in front of us. But Rajouri, Poonch continues to be restive. Yesterday's encounter was actually the third that we've seen in which there have been, multiple army casualties just this year. May, then November, and now this particular one. What is it about the terrain there that makes it so conducive for infiltrations and, terrorist attacks and encounters, sir?
2 things. First and foremost, like I said, that winter months are a normal playground for the terrorist and infiltrating forces in the areas south of Pir Panjal. Secondly, there are a large number of hill features, not of very great heights, and a tremendous amount of jungle cover which is available in the areas of Poonch Rajouri sector, south of Pir Panjal, thus enabling terrorists to find suitable hiding places. Incidentally, these areas also happen to be on the lower slopes of the Pir Panjal ranges, so normal civilians vacate their dhokes and come further down, thus enabling the terrorists to occupy some of those dhokes and places where they can hide and take shelter. Also, they take advantage of the inclement weather which is currently existing in this area to come and infiltrate in and cause a certain amount of turbulence in the entire sector.
General, I want to draw your attention to a very troubling aspect of this attack, which hasn't been, confirmed officially yet by the army. But the reason I ask is because we've actually seen it happen before 10 years ago in the Mendhar sector when there had been a similar ambush on our troops. There are reports, there are some journalists, there are some media reports which suggest that some of the bodies of the Jawans who were killed in action in this encounter may have been mutilated. One or maybe 2 of them may have been beheaded as well. The heads are said to be missing. I want to clarify once again that we don't have an official confirmation of this from the Indian Army, so we don't want to say that this has in fact happened. But if something like this has happened, and it has happened before, General Kapoor, how would the response actually change, and would it change, sir?
You see, the reaction cannot change. We, the Indian Army and the security forces are there to make sure that all terrorists and all kinds of terrorism in these areas is eliminated. As to what the terrorists do with our men, I think that is heinous and not an acceptable form. But if that has been done, I'm sure the security forces will take adequate measures to ensure that all these people who indulge in such activities are taken care of in their own fashion.
What would you say about the possibility of redeployment gaps, General Kapoor? Because there is reason to believe that there may have been a slight thinning out of troops from the Rajouri, Poonch, Jammu area in order to bolster defenses starting around 2020, 2021 during the Ladakh standoff. Would that be an opportunity area for Pakistan, to attack in this area?
I have not only led the army, I was also the Northern Army commander, so I can say that with certainty that there would be no such gaps left, especially knowing that this area specifically gets absolutely total attention during the winter months when it's not possible to come through the northern areas because of the passes being closed. So this possibility of leaving gaps, I'm afraid I do not go along with that theory. And I have no doubt that all the gaps and all the requirement of troops which is there to ensure sanctity of the line of control are fully being maintained. But the possibility that the weather as well as the folds of the terrain may have been used by these people in conjunction with certain amount of assistance from some, and I say some locals, to infiltrate in, take shelter, and thereafter cause all the terror and mayhem in the area. That is very much possible, but I don't think the security forces will leave gaps just because there has been deployments in some other sectors within J&K or in Ladakh.
Final question, General Kapoor, then is, in your view, I mean, there are many different circumstances to understand. There are elections in Pakistan, there are elections coming up in India, there's the standoff with China in the northern areas. How should India respond to an encounter of this kind? Do you think a Sarp Vinash 2.0, and I asked this question to General Malik as well, a proactive kind of large-scale operation, do you think that is the order of the day now?
I do not think we should get into this aspect very much, for the simple reason that we've had insurgency starting in J&K from 1989. And from then till now, it's a period of almost 24 years. The troops, as well as the security forces, are very well trained, and they all know what exactly has to be done. I don't think any new techniques have to be tried as far as technology is concerned. Whatever is coming to the services and whatever is being used by the security forces is the best that the country can provide within those means and constraints. I have no doubt that the forces are using those very means to ensure that infiltration is checked, and when terrorists have come in, taking advantage of the weather and the folds of the terrain, they would automatically be looked after or taken care of in the manner that people have done it in the past. Please don't forget that the security forces have also had a tremendous amount of experience during the last as much as 34 odd years to deal with these situations, and this is not something new for them.
General Kapoor, thank you very much for your time and your wisdom on this developing story. We appreciate your insights into an encounter and an incident that still isn't, I have to remind all of our viewers, over just yet, and we will continue to report it. But thank you very much. Very valuable to hear from an ex-chief of the army staff, two that you've heard from on the show so far. And remember, I'd like to remind all of our viewers once again that we will not be reporting any images live from the encounter site. We are fully aware, as India Today has a lot of experience in reporting on terror encounters and security conflicts of this kind, that this kind of thing could actually help terrorists and their handlers across the line of control. So rest assured, other channels may do it, but India Today takes that responsibility very seriously. But the battlefield is not just in Dera ki Gali in the Rajouri sector, it's also India's political battlefield, because the opposition, this being election season, has upped the ante against the Modi government after the killing of those 4 Jawans on Thursday. Former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah has slammed the centre for boasting about the Article 370 purge. Many others have joined in the bandwagon. Take a look.
The Jaish-e-Mohammed attack on an army convoy in Rajouri has triggered a political slugfest. First to train guns on the Modi government was former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah, who raked up Article 370.
ये 370 जिम्मेवार है टेररिज्म का, कहते थे ना, रियासत बैकवर्ड हो गई थी इनके वक्त में, है? आज भी आतंकवाद है, अभी आपने देखा कि कहाँ पहुंचे, आतंकवाद बंद नहीं हुआ.
Congress and other India alliance members also hit out at the centre for failing to crack down on Pakistan-sponsored terror.
It is very sad part, and we salute the sacrifice of those brave Jawans. But in the meantime, Mr. Amit Shah, who continues to be in a denial mode on the happenings in Kashmir, must take responsibility.
कल का जो पुंछ में हमला हुआ है, ये एक प्रकार से रिपीट ऑफ पुलवामा है. पुलवामा में इसी प्रकार से हमला हुआ था. सरकार सो रही थी, आज भी सरकार सो रही है. 370 हटाने का जश्न आप मना रहे हो ना, तो ये देखिए क्या हो गया है.
This year alone, there have been 13 terror incidents in Rajouri, resulting in the death of 11 security personnel. In Poonch, there have been 8 terror incidents in 2023 alone, with 5 security personnel and 15 terrorists killed. There were also protests in Jammu against the attack in Rajouri. Will India's netas unite on issues of national security and put India first? Bureau Report, India Today.